welcome back to Instagram for Tuesday.
Oh, it's World Turmoil Tuesday. Every Tuesday we report on hot topics, so here we go.
Video games and geopolitics usually do not mix, but Blizzard really stepped into a hornet's nest this weekend and we just can't help but talk about it.
Ooh, yeah, this is it. This is it, boys. This is what you've been talking about on your Reddits and your 4chans. Politics done caused a censorship in games. This is what everybody's mad about, right? Not women that just don't wear thongs anymore.
Lots of fans are outraged, and some are threatening to boycott one of its biggest games after Blizzard suspended a player over the weekend for making a statement supporting anti-government protests in Hong Kong.
Yeah, boy, that's a whole thing. Really stepped into it. So it happened a few days ago during the stream of the Hearthstone Grandmasters competition when the Hong Kong player Blitzchung N.B.A, boy, I hope I said that right, appeared on an official Taiwanese stream for the game.
He was in a gas mask, which was similar to what protesters had been wearing, and at one point he removed it and said, "Liberate Hong Kong, revolution of our age."
Yeah, the two casters quickly ducked under their desk and the stream cut away to an ad break.
And surprise, Blizzard just loved this.
No,
right?
They loved it. Boy, they said, give this guy some more money.
Yeah, right, Brian?
They did not take too kindly to this. They stripped him of his prize money for the season. He has also been banned from Grandmasters play. That's like the highest level of Hearthstone for a whole year. And they also said they wouldn't work with the two casters anymore. They just seem like collateral damage in this whole thing.
I think Blizzard needs to put on a show of force here, and they're doing it. They're just basically excising the cancer.
In a statement, they cited an internal rule that said players can't engage, quote, in any act that in Blizzard's sole discretion brings you into public disrepute, offends a portion or group of the public, or otherwise damages Blizzard's image. It's a pretty vague statement, but there it is.
It's broadly written, and it's done so on purpose. Obviously, it sounds like Blizzard can enact that rule for any reason, because you can argue that almost any statement could possibly offend a portion or group of the public. They also explicitly say Blizzard's sole discretion, but it honestly does sound like the spirit of the rule isn't necessarily for this.
It brings up the question, is it really damaging Blizzard's image other than its ability to make money in China?
I mean, it's damaging their image in China for sure. Blizzard added that, quote, Grandmasters is the highest tier of Hearthstone esports, and we take tournament rule violations very seriously. After an investigation, we are taking the necessary actions to prevent similar incidents from happening in the future, which is to say a black van will be rolling up outside of Blitzchung's apartment, and hopefully we'll be hearing from him soon.
Oh boy.
China would be proud.
I don't know if they let him stream from the internment camps, but one way to find out. That's a dark joke, I'm sorry.
Oh, they don't have internment camps.
No. Yeah.
That's too costly to the people. People just disappear. They just silently go away.
Weirdly, there's almost an exact parallel scandal going on in the N.B.A. right now.
God.
That's here in the US where we play b-ball, you know.
Where we're free?
To shoot that hoop.
Free to earn that money.
So that actually happened after the general manager of the Houston Rockets tweeted in support of the Hong Kong protesters. He quickly took it down, but the N.B.A. later apologized and China moved to basically cut all ties with the Rockets, which is the most popular team in that country.
Yeah. And that should show you the consequences of saying things against the Chinese government, is they cut you out. And they have the power of purse, so that hurts. And this isn't the last example of this happening, even in recent memory, right, Brian?
Yeah, we have another, almost a parallel controversy. A recent episode of South Park mocked Chinese censors, kind of took a jab at Disney too. It was also recently erased from every major platform in China. So again, if you piss off China, they are going to do all they can to just completely block you from the internet. If they have business ties with you, they are going to sever them very quickly.
And in an entertaining fashion, as they do, there was a fake apology from the creators, Matt Stone and Trey Parker, where they made fun of the N.B.A. for caving into China, saying, quote, like the N.B.A., we welcome the Chinese censors into our homes and into our hearts. We too love money more than freedom and democracy. Well said.
God bless. Yeah, at the heart of all this are the Hong Kong protests, which have been going on since last June. And
Okay, go.
We make dick jokes and talk about video games. This is one of the weird parts where we have to actually try to responsibly cover actual world events. So we'll try to sum it up without getting way too deep or necessarily expressing too strong an opinion, even though it should be pretty obvious where the right and wrong here is. So they're between pro-democracy residents in Hong Kong and an authoritarian government in China who wants to exercise more control over the area. Specifically, I think it started with China, the mainland, wanting to extradite prisoners from Hong Kong to the mainland where they could be tried in court. But boy, there's not a good track record of having fair trials for dissidents in China.
And it's been about 3 straight months of protests. They're massive, they're involving hundreds of thousands of people, and they're basically paralyzed the island.
Yeah, activists have stormed airports and government buildings while the government has used tear gas and recently live ammunition on protesters. It's getting bad.
It also should be noted that China does not have the best human rights record.
And this is when we make sure sure this episode will never be seen in China.
Absolutely. We'll miss you, China. It's good knowing you. So from Tibet to Tiananmen Square to its current detention of the Uyghur Muslims, it has an extremely sketchy record that lots of businesses conveniently ignore.
There's money to be made. The protesters have garnered huge support around the world, and people are now accusing Blizzard of siding with profits over human rights.
Once again, up to you to decide. We're not telling you what to think. That's a very Chinese philosophy. Anyway, so Blizzard's suspension of Blitzchung is already causing a massive backlash online, both inside and outside of the Hearthstone community. Right, Brian? Did you laugh like 30 seconds ago? It was like on a weird delay? What was that?
I don't know if it was a delay or what.
Very well-timed comedic pause. Thank you, Wi-Fi.
Anyway, take it from Bloomberg. Lost you. We might be just losing you Wi-Fi wise.
China!
Bloomberg writer Noah Smith called it, quote, another case of a U.S. corporation canceling an individual for offending China. And over on the main Hearthstone subreddit, where they're usually concerned with complaining about all the loot boxes and the game's meta, some are now vowing to completely delete Hearthstone. Others say they're going to move over to Magic the Gathering.
If capitalism is what's pulling the strings here, then we as consumers have the right to push back. As for Blitzchung, he later gave a statement to the site InvenGlobal saying, quote, I know what my actions on stream mean. It could cause me a lot of trouble, even my personal safety in real life, but I think it's my duty to say something about the issue. That's patriotism, you guys.
As for Hearthstone, obviously no game is more important than human life, but it's now worth looking at how important it is to Blizzard.
I think it's important to understand the motivations here. So the collectible card game launched for Windows and Mac in 2014, and the mobile versions followed later that year.
And it won a lot of fans for its Blizzard polish, as well as the fact that it was simpler to play than some more established card games like Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Magic the Gathering.
Yeah, it kind of had that Blizzard magic, just the lights and sounds were pleasant. There have been other digital card games before it, obviously, but Hearthstone quickly turned into a behemoth.
A really, really profitable behemoth, actually. These free-to-play card games are loot box machines since players have to keep buying cards to keep up with the meta.
Yeah, where do you think the loot box ideas came from? Those collectible card game packs, way back.
No, it's Kinder Eggs, remember?
Yeah, you're right, sorry. I fell into the Magic the Gathering trap like in the late 90s. And I had a shoebox full of them and no money.
Quite ethical, quite fun.
Both ethical and fun. I mean, my parents didn't have a problem with it. It got my little brain.
He's playing with his shoebox again. There he goes.
Yeah, the money kept rolling in as far as Hearthstone is concerned. By 2015, it was pulling in $20 million a month and was credited with completely disrupting the card game industry.
Then in November, Blizzard announced that 100 million players had tried the game. It's been a bright spot for the company that has desperately needed one.
Hearthstone also attracted a lot of imitators of its own, like Artifact from Valve, Gwent from CD Projekt Red, and Elder Scrolls Legends. But nothing could really match Hearthstone's popularity.
But over the years, Blizzard might have killed its golden goose. It increased the pace of expansions, and it phased out lots of older cards, which forced players to buy more and more packs to keep up, once again, with the game's meta.
Where's the state of the game right now, Brian? Or this year, basically?
Yeah, so full disclosure, I play a lot of Hearthstone, and over the last few years, people have been annoyed because the expansions, there have been more and more of them. It's gotten more and more expensive to play, and the meta has gotten really stale. It's kind of boring. Earlier this year, people have been even asking if the game was pricing out its own players, that it just gotten too expensive to play. And this is a fact of all trading card games. I mean, people pay thousands of dollars to play Magic, but Hearthstone was always kind of affordable, and it's not as much that way anymore. So this has just kind of been the cherry on top.
By some estimates, Hearthstone's revenues might have peaked in 2016, and its monthly active users started declining last year.
Yeah, even worse. Earlier this year, it was reported that the revenues declined a whopping 52% from 2018. SuperData reported that the cause of the decline could be game fatigue along with competition from Magic the Gathering Arena. Magic the Gathering Arena, I guess full disclosures all around, they did sponsor a video on this channel, so they have paid for placement on here, but we're not pro Magic the Gathering Arena. I feel like that should be said out loud. I don't know where I'm going with that.
Maybe you can buy opinions? I'm not sure. Anyway.
Yes, you can.
And now Blizzard is running the risk of sparking a huge backlash among the players that are remaining.
It's also the second big player revolt they've created in less than a year.
You might remember this back in November when Blizzard rolled out its newest Diablo game, only for fans to turn on it when it turned out to be mobile only.
Fans booed the announcement, sparking the now infamous line from Blizzard.
Do you guys not have phones?
Yeah, you guys all have phones.
That's what you want to do. Talk down to your fans.
I
People who paid to be there.
get his frustration. He was just trying to be loose, and boy, that was not the right thing to say at that time.
Quick side note, Blizzard is making Diablo Immortal with Chinese mobile developer NetEase.
That's weird. Yeah, as much as that was derided, it was a sign of just how big mobile has become. Smartphone and tablet games make up 45% of the global games market, and a huge number of those players are in China.
China's player base was around 601 million users last year, which is nearly 3 times the 210 million mobile users in the US and Canada last year.
The number is expected to grow to more than 700 million in China by the end of 2021. Currently, Hearthstone is the 21st ranked card game in China on Apple's App Store, but it's safe to say that's a lot of players.
As for gaming revenue, the US is still on top with estimated revenues of more than 36.8 billion. That's from this year. But China is close behind with 36.5 billion, and more than 4 times the population. It's viewed as a growing market.
Yeah, they also spend more than anybody else. Chinese mobile users forked out 40% of the $101 billion spent globally on apps last year. So it's safe to say they spend more than anybody else in terms of gaming.
Is there any sort of correlation to depression and spending in video games? I don't know.
It's high.
It's not hard to guess why Blizzard would be touchy about this. If Blizzard is seen as a hotbed for civic unrest, and China will just refuse to publish any of their games in that region, not to mention cutting business ties with them as developers. And then poof, a huge chunk of potential revenue for Diablo Immortal just disappears overnight. Actually, the whole game probably detonates. It probably wouldn't even release in America at that point because it's co-developed with a Chinese developer. Then Activision Blizzard loses out on a huge pile of revenue. What happens next? Activision Blizzard CEO Bobby Kotick has to go in front of all their investors and explain to them why Activision Blizzard just lost billions by letting a Hearthstone winner say a thing on a stream.
Try to imagine how well that would go over for, rich people. Not that I really need to give them any sympathy, or nor should you, but Kotick would probably be forced to resign if a project like this completely tanked on his watch. Once again, not making excuses, just trying to look at it from both sides.
Yeah, it's not making excuses, it's just explaining this is why Blizzard's acting this way.
Blizzard clearly is trying not to piss off China and its massive market, but in the process, it's looking like it supports a government that's violently cracking down on protesters.
Here's the interesting part, though. It's created a nice little PR soft bed for someone to belly flop on. One rival card game, Gods Unchained, has already criticized Blizzard's decision. They tweeted that they'll pay for all of Blitzchung's lost winnings, saying no player should be punished for their beliefs.
They added that, quote, Blizzard proved that centralized games companies will censor and exploit their players if it is in their immediate financial interests.
We reached out to Blizzard for comment, doing our due diligence. They obviously referred us to their public post about the incident. In that, Blizzard wrote, quote, while we stand by one's right to express individual thoughts and opinions, players and other participants that elect to participate in our esports competitions must abide by the official competition rules. And wouldn't you know it, comments are disabled on that post. They never do that. They never do that.
Wow.
Why this one, I wonder?
This whole thing brings up a larger issue of political speech in public events like sports and video games. In some cases, like during the NFL controversy over kneeling during the national anthem, there were lots of calls to keep politics out of sports.
There is a reasonable argument for it's a card tournament. People don't tune into a card tournament to hear what you have to think about world politics. They just want to watch you play cards. Same with NFL. People go to football games, they maybe don't want to be reminded of politics, but world politics are getting to the point. They're getting so contentious that maybe we shouldn't be allowed to look away from it or ignore it.
It's a very interesting topic that we will not be deep diving into on this show.
Yeah, that's not what we're for, that's for sure.
So that's probably what Blizzard was aiming for here, but it seems like a lot of its players, in the West at least, are coming to the defense of someone's right to make a political statement. We can't really have an opinion on that in the show. We just want to inform you, and hopefully you can come up with your own decision from there. But safe to say, we do definitely support human rights here.
It's interesting because I don't want to say it's easy for us to say that because we have no stakes. Like, we have no tournament winnings to lose, and we have no business that's going to tank by saying that. So yes, support human rights. I can kind of see when you have hundreds of thousands of very angry, very rich people hollering at you, I can see why you might start sweating that decision a little bit, especially if it's just one player on one stream for one Hearthstone tournament. Still shitty. There's a right and a wrong in this world. Well, that's where I'm coming from.
We've also seen this countless times where, a lot of people do have freedom of speech, but you're also not free from the consequences that may incur when you're dealing with a business who can tell you yes or no. And yes, that totally sucks, but we've seen this happen before. It's not the first time, and it will not be the last.
I've been trying to test the waters. One of these days I'm going to say something on Inside Gaming that gets me fired.
I'd rather not be on camera when that happens.
Yeah, you're going to duck like that commentator? Didn't save them, Adam. It's not saving you. Brian, you're on the hook too.
Just close up the laptop when you start to speak.
Let the Wi-Fi cut out. Somebody from full screen starts downloading.
You've been censored by China.
No.
To attack women, and in some cases, even to engage in cannibalism.
But this rarely has a really significant impact on actual game sales, so publishers aren't really given much incentive to change their games to bend to public outcry. In fact, in America, a good controversy will almost always